Hello, everyone. We're just going to hang on for a couple minutes while people log on. Thank you for your patience. If you haven't already thought about what questions you have for the Wok Therapist about woks or stir frying, please think about that now. And if you have some questions, go ahead and post them in the comments. Welcome, everybody. We're just waiting for a few more people to log on. I think we will get started. Hello. Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Hsiao-Ching Chou, and I'm the chair of the James Beard Book Awards Committee, and I'll be your host today. This is the James Beard Media Awards at Home presented by Capital One. Our theme today is The Wok Therapist Will See You Now. That just such a great thing. This is the 7th in a series of conversations about and with winners from the Media Awards. And today we have a walking good show for you today. Haha, that will be my one and only wok pun. Our featured guest is Grace Young, who has been dubbed the stir fry guru and now wok therapist. She is the author of 3 books, The Wisdom of the Chinese Kitchen, the James Beard Award-winning Stir Frying to the Sky's Edge, and my favorite, The Breath of the Wok. Our conversation will have 3 acts today. We'll begin with talking about the Wok Therapist video, which won a James Beard Award in this year's season. And Grace will be joined by Harrison Jeffs, the co-creator of the Wok Therapist. Harrison is a filmmaker based in Los Angeles. We'll then shift to a wok show and tell. We welcome you to submit any questions about woks and stir frying. Finally, we'll hear from Grace about her video series documenting how Manhattan's Chinatown has been affected by the pandemic. Let's welcome Grace and Harrison. Hello. Thanks for joining us. I think we'll let you introduce yourselves really quick, and then we're going to show a clip of the video. Grace, it's so good to see you again. How's it going?
Everything's okay. I'm here today from New York City. So there was jackhammering outside my window this morning, so I was a little unnerved about doing this event, but everything's calm now. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this, talking about
Cool.
stir frying, Chinese cooking, woks. And I'm so glad that Harrison Jeffs, my partner in crime, is with us, because our Wok Therapist video would never have happened without him.
Welcome, Harrison.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so great to be here. Yeah, it's great to see Grace again. We haven't seen each other face to face, I guess, since we shot this. So yeah, and yeah, to win a James Beard Award this year is it's so exciting, and yeah, excited to talk about it.
Fantastic. Well, let's first things first, let's see the trailer for this award-winning video. I'm going to play that for you. So just enough to tantalize you and to what this is all about. Maybe, Grace, we can start with you describing a little bit about what the concept is and how it even came to be.
So this is based on reality. For over 20 years, I've been getting emails, text messages, people write on my Facebook page, on Twitter, Instagram. They send me photos of their walks. They're anxious. They're insecure about seasoning a wok for the first time. Once they've seasoned it, they're sure that they've done it incorrectly. And so at first I took it all super seriously. And then I started seeing the humor in this, like a few years into it. And a few years ago, I thought this would make a really great story. And I thought about it. And then I approached Harrison. I said, I don't know if this is really brilliant or really stupid. And Harrison said he loved it. And so, so we went forward and I was writing the script. And then Harrison tells me, we had a date set at the end of August. And he was like, I just got a job in LA. So I'll be leaving in a few days. And I'll give you like a shoot day, like in 3 days. And so I was like, what? So Harrison, so we proceeded to shoot and tell them how it went.
Yeah, well, so we had done 3 videos previous to this one, and all of those were kind of pretty, basic, shoot a dish that Grace is cooking and make it look beautiful. But this one was just really conceptual and it's so funny, and just figuring out how to visualize it was a real challenge. So we had that one day to shoot. We tried to do everything we could, and then when I went to edit the first cut, I was just like, oh, I don't know. There's so many holes still to fill in, and so yeah, we just decided during my winter break when I came back to New York, we would try to shoot more, and we just shot as much as we could then, and ended up making it work. And yeah, that people loved it, and that it's been winning awards after such a kind of scary start. It's pretty incredible. And yeah, it was just such a fun experience.
So can you talk a little bit about that? You said there were a lot of holes. For those in our audience who maybe aren't aware of just how much is involved in making this type of video, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what's B-roll?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So a lot of Grace's narration was kind of about, the details of a walk and all the insecurities that people go through. So I realized we were going to have a lot of different angles of these different walks to make it, interesting and dynamic. And the first time we really didn't get that. So the second time I was just kind of shooting the walk in every close-up that I could think of and really just trying to get some beautiful, gliding shots over it. And I still wasn't sure if it would make sense and work. And yeah, it ended up working. And then there were other sections, Grace had a funny section where she's actually a Wok therapist and talking to her clients who are nervous about their walk and how it looks. And it all just really came together. And I thought it turned out really funny and interesting.
So, Grace, were these real like people were they friends or were they actors?
No actors. No. They were walk patients. They were genuine walk patients. But I have to say that after we shot that first day, then I didn't hear from Harrison for 4 months. And I knew he was starting a new job, new apartment, new roommate, everything, new city. So I was like just holding back, not trying to be in his face, like, where's the video? Where's the rough cut? And then when he informed me it's not working, it was just devastating because I was like, what? So we weren't even sure when we went in for the reshoot that we've definitely got it. And then Harrison, remember we were shooting at Christmas time during the holidays. And so the light disappeared on us like at 4:15. And our last walk patient arrived at like 3:50 and got on the couch. And by then the light was barely there. And by the time we finished shooting him, do you remember, Harrison? It was completely dark.
I know. Yeah, we made kind of the silly decision to use all natural lighting. just through, the sunlight. And yeah, we just waited a little too long, and we thought we might not get it. But yeah, I think it ended up looking pretty good overall. Yeah.
So, Grace, tell us a little bit about the script. Like you were drawing from real
Right.
experiences, but putting that into something like this. That, I mean, it was funny, but were you trying to be a comedian?
No. I was right. Everything that I have in the script is real. There are people that I feel have walk obsessive compulsive disorder. They are completely fixated on their every scratch. They're scrutinizing the color. They're very judgmental about their walk. And then when I ask them, these emails late at night, my husband's always coming in like he's going to bed and I'm at the computer and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have one more question I've got to answer. The person is just like, complete. He sent me these photographs. I just had to answer. And then first thing in the morning, he sees me at the computer. He's like, are you still at it? And I just constantly get these emails and people are sending photographs and I'll say to them, but the wok cooks perfectly, right? Nothing's sticking. Oh yeah, nothing's sticking. But so they're still stuck on the way the wok looks. It's not enough that it's cooking perfectly. They expect it. And in the video, I talk about the fact that everyone is seeing photographs of my woks for various reasons. And so they're comparing the look of their wok with my wok. And it's never good to compare.
I mean, but who knew? Who knew that there was this walk obsessive compulsive disorder? And in a way, Grace, it has forced you to become a little bit obsessive about responding to people.
Oh yeah.
What's up with that?
And then I also have my issues of wok hoarding. So there's all kinds of, yeah.
So do you need therapy?
Aspects of wok therapy.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you need therapy yourself?
But it's a beautiful thing, and everyone thinks that they're the only ones who don't get it. It's like they think that, so many people are intimidated to season a wok. And it is weird because when you start with a brand new carbon steel wok, the moment you season it, it looks like you made a mistake. So I totally get it. And my parents, oh no, the jackhammering is outside. Do you hear it? I'm not lying.
Well, actually, it's great because we were going to have to save the tips for the next segment when people are going to have some questions, I'm sure. So Harrison, what did you learn from this process? Because every time you shoot in different kinds of settings and different subject matter, I mean, you must learn something new about how to put that together. I mean, woks are, they're beautiful when you look at them up close, but they're different when they're on screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think, first of all, like, I didn't really know about all of this about the wok because I had just started cooking with a wok, and I was a little insecure myself. So when Grace sent over this narration, told me about this, I actually felt a little better about myself, and it was just it was, and I just love the story, kind of how she compared a wok to life and how you have good days and bad days. But yeah, this was only, again, one of my first times filming food and cooking, so I was still learning a lot here too. And yeah, it was kind of learning as I went, just figuring out what works. And yeah, so I learned a ton.
Are there any tips that you can give some of our folks at home who, probably figuring out how they like their Instagram food shots or reels now? So what any quick tips?
Yeah, I would say just go with your instincts, go with the angle that looks good to you in the moment, and don't overthink it. That was kind of my philosophy with this, because I knew we were in a time crunch and we wouldn't have a lot of time to really set up shots and really analyze everything about it, the lighting, the composition. So it was just, go with your instincts.
But Harrison has extremely incredible instincts. He is very humble and super talented. So he made this an incredible video. I had an interesting idea, but after I saw the film, it was just like I just had this big smile on my face because every shot is so beautifully lit. He's a natural.
Well, and I think a big part why this was, probably our best video is because we had worked 3 other times together, and we had kind of built this, this trust and kind of, communication that we probably didn't have the first time we did a video. So it was kind of just like we were, banging shots out and really just moving along. So it was just such a great experience, and I love working with Grace so much.
It's an amazing collaborative experience. And most people who are doing these videos have a production company. It's just the two of us. We don't even have, a dishwasher. Whatever Harrison's not doing, I'm doing. Whatever I'm not doing, Harrison's doing. So we're very, very in sync. And it's a really exciting and fabulous feeling of collaboration.
I think that speaks to the nature of a lot of this type of content nowadays anyway, because we're all operating under very tight budgets, if any at all, and operating under, many hats. So I think it's a great example. So are you working on any other projects?
Harrison doesn't know this, but I have another idea for him.
Yeah, whenever.
You heard it. You heard it here first.
As soon as he's willing to fly back here, I've got a big job for him.
Yeah, I'm always waiting for Grace to ask me. So yeah, anything you want to do, I'll do. So.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Harrison, for joining us, and congratulations on this win.
Yeah.
We are going to transition to the next act, which is we're going to have a little bit of a walk, show, and tell. So we'll see you next time, Harrison. Grace, why don't you kind of get situated there for everybody? For anybody who joined late, this is the James Beard Media Awards at Home, presented by Capital One. Grace, I see a wok handle peeking out from the side of your screen. I know you have more woks than we have time to talk about today, but you picked a few of your favorites. So maybe give us a quick tour, and then we'll launch into some wok discussion.
Okay, so this is my all-time favorite 14-inch flat bottom wok. The traditional wok is round bottom, but for most people cooking on a residential stove, this is what you want with the long wood handle. And the reason is because the traditional round bottom wok, you need a wok ring. And the moment you use a wok ring, the wok is set too far from the heat. And you want 14 inches because woks can be bought 12 inches, 10 inches, which is too small, and the food will be crowded. And if you do a 16, 18, 20-inch wok, it's too big. That's a restaurant-sized wok, and you'll never get hot enough on your stove. So this wok, I buy from the Wok Shop in San Francisco's Chinatown, wokshop.com. It's been in business for over 50 years. The owner, Tane Chan, is 82 years old and has been going into the shop every day throughout the pandemic. And the Wok Shop should be a national treasure for woks because it's so amazing. And Nancy Pelosi was just there and gave Tane a special congressional recognition certificate because the story is so important. This, I'm just showing you for a quick second. Lots of people know about it. This is Walkman, which is almost the same as the Tane Chan Wok Shop wok, except it's a teeny bit shorter, the handle. And so this is the wok that I take whenever I do cooking demos. So this wok has been all over the world and has probably logged in more frequent flyer miles than most people. But I would never go on a cooking demo for a TV show or a class and not bring my own wok. And I never pack it and check in my luggage because I'm afraid it's going to get lost. And so I put it into carry-on. And this is the only wok with a slightly shorter handle that can fit into a carry-on. And if you've never traveled with a Wok, you have not truly experienced TSA. They generally treat me at first like a terrorist and have me stand to the side as they wand my carry-on and put on special gloves. And then by the time they pull out the Wok, they are asking me my tips for fried rice. Okay, so this is a very, very famous Wok. If any of you have my book, The Breath of a Wok, this is the Wok that is on the cover. It is hand pounded. It was purchased in Shanghai. It was made by the Sen brothers, C-E-N, and they are no longer in business, but they had a Wok pounding business that they took over from their father for over 80 years. And they just closed in 2016. And this takes 5 hours to make. It's an extraordinary Wok. Because it is hand pounded, the heat is evenly distributed, so there's never a hot spot. It's such a pleasure to cook with. My friend Tom says to me that every time he takes his down from his pot rack, he says it's as close as he's ever going to get to a religious experience, because it's a beautiful thing to work with an instrument that has been handmade and is a piece of art. And since many of you can't buy the Sen Wok, or all of you can't buy the Sen Wok anymore, I thought I would show you a hand-pounded Wok that is made in the USA by a wonderful artist named Eric Newquist. Newquist is spelled Newquist. And Eric apparently went to Thailand in 2015 and fell in love with Thai cooking. He's had a metalsmith company for 20 years. He makes gardening tools. He makes carbon steel saute pans. And so after this vacation, he decided to make a Wok. And at first his Wok was very rough, and he refined it a bit. And then he came across my book, The Breath of a Wok, and saw the photographs that Alan Richardson took of the Sen brothers Wok. And between the photographs and my stories about watching the Sen brothers make their beautiful hand-pounded Wok, he was able to, he said, take his Wok to the next level. And as you can see, it has this gorgeous handle. He also has a POW Wok with a hollow handle, and he can custom make it for you. And so it's wonderful to support an artist. And if you're interested, you would just Google Newquist Forge, F-O-R-G-E, and you'll get the information on how to get one of these. And I highly recommend it. It's so beautiful and such a pleasure to cook with.
You have all these. Okay. One more.
One more. So I have two here. Maybe I'll show you this. This is for people who have a ceramic glass top or induction stove. Tain Chan at the Wok Shop says it's enamel lined on the outside and flat bottom, and this is your best option. And it's based on the traditional Cantonese cast iron wok. I'm squeezing one more in, Hsiao-Ching, that looks like this. And when you buy such a wok, the people tap it like a watermelon to hear the sound, and you buy it according to the bell-like sound. Whoops. So that bell ends my Wok and Tell presentation. I have many, many more woks that my husband doesn't know about, but that's all we have time for today, according to Hsiao-Ching.
Well, we do already have some questions, but specifically, and I think a lot of people have this question, which is that if they have an older stove or older type kitchen where whatever the stove is, they can't get enough heat, or maybe there's no exhaust fan, maybe they live in an apartment. Like what's a good solution for that, for achieving A, what type of wok should they buy, and B, how do they achieve wok hei?
So wok hei is Cantonese for, everyone knows what wok is. Hei is the same in Mandarin as qi, which is life force. So when the Cantonese say you've made a great stir fry, They say it possesses wok hay, or what I translate as the breath of a wok. And you only get that if there's enough heat to stir fry. So my friend Scott Hunt lives in New York City and has a very ordinary New York City stove. And it takes him, I think I was at his apartment once, 4 minutes to heat his wok. My wok is heated on my KitchenAid residential stove in 1 minute. So sometimes it's just longer. And to test your wok, so how do you know when your wok is correctly heated? I flick a drop of water into the wok, and when it just evaporates, then it's ready. The only caveat to that is when your wok is newly seasoned, the drop of water trick doesn't work. It ends up being like a bead of mercury, and it will just roll around your wok. Once your wok is seasoned, then that bead of water, the drop of water trick always works. So then you judge it by when you add the oil. If it smokes wildly, then you've overheated the wok and you've got to pull it off the heat, put a lid on it, let it cool down. You know, when it's cool enough, wipe it out carefully with paper towels and then wash the wok and start again. If you haven't heated, if you add the oil and there's no wild smoke, but you add your aromatics and there's no sizzle sound, that shows you haven't preheated the wok enough. So those are the two ways to judge it if you can't do the flick of water.
So really the key is to preheat, right? Is that the general rule of thumb?
Preheat, and then the other thing is using the flat bottom wok. If you use a round bottom wok, then you have to set it on the wok ring, and that raises the wok and you'll never get it hot enough. And if you have a house or an outdoor area where you can cook, then I suggest you could actually get a portable butane burner, which is not very expensive. My favorite is called Iwatani, and you can buy it on Amazon. And it's more powerful than my KitchenAid stove. So when our building lost gas and we were out of gas for 6 months doing a repair, I bought this Iwatani, set it by the window, opened up the window, and it was extraordinary.
I have one of those too that I take with me, yes, to cook in other settings. So the flat bottom wok, but also the material is important too. Can you talk a little bit about the carbon steel versus any other type of material?
So first of all, that's such a great question. Thank you, Hsiao-Ching. You're the expert. You don't need to ask me any of this stuff. But never, ever nonstick. Nonstick should immediately go into the garbage, especially Teflon style nonstick, because it's never meant for high heat cooking. And then you can buy really expensive nonstick, but why? Because the carbon steel wok that you buy at the wok shop costs $35, and it will last you more than your lifetime. And the more you cook with it, the more it actually acquires what is called a patina, which is, it becomes a natural nonstick surface. So I call it ancient nonstick cookware. So my favorite material is carbon steel by far. Don't buy stainless steel because it won't get that natural nonstick surface. Don't waste your money on a Le Creuset wok because it's just expensive. Everything sticks. I have a type A wok personality, so I've tested with every kind of material. I can save you the money. Don't buy Teflon, Le Creuset. It's pointless. All you need is a $35 carbon steel wok from the wok shop. Tain Chan says that young Asian, Chinese American couples come in and they say they want to buy a good wok. And she says, it's this one for $35. And they say, no, unlike our parents, we want to spend money. We want a good wok. And so she says, well, a good wok is $35. That's all you need. And they say, no, we're going to go to Macy's. So they can't stop themselves.
It's a very different perspective. Yeah, it's a very different perspective. For sure. Like we in our culture, like we're not focused on spending a ton of money on the equipment because it's not necessary, right? So I think that's really interesting. So somebody asked the question about if there's a specific model number, but I think if you go to Wok Shop or any other place, and they get a flat bottom carbon steel 14-inch. at the Wok Shop, you can actually pick your configuration, right, Grace?
So the reason I like the Wok Shop is I like to support mom and pop businesses, and especially right now, all Chinese mom and pop businesses need as much help as possible. But the wok that the Wok Shop sells is made in America. It's made in the Bay Area, and the carbon steel is heavy gauge. So it's the quality of the product is incredible. You can buy lots of carbon steel woks in Asian markets and Williams-Sonoma, Sur La Table, wherever, but most of them are coming from Taiwan, and the quality isn't as good.
Interesting.
So no brand. I'm not a fan of Joyce Chen woks, but in fact, the Joyce Chen wok I was told will no longer exist because it was sold, and so I wasn't a fan because they have plastic handles. I prefer wood, and sometimes I even use my wok in the oven. And when I do that, I just cover the wood handle with a very wet washcloth and aluminum foil, and that protects the wood. But I don't want to put plastic into a really hot oven.
That is a good point, because I've seen too many woks that have plastic handles, and that's just a bad idea all around. We do have a question. This one is about stir frying, actually, so it's a nice little transition. Do you blanch certain vegetables before stir frying? And if so, which ones?
So you would only blanch. So I categorize vegetables into 3 categories for stir frying. Hard, which would be carrots, parsnips, broccoli, cauliflower. Then there's medium hard, which would be bell peppers, snow peas, mushrooms, and then what I call soft, leafy, tender, and that would be bean sprouts, spinach, something that's going to collapse really quickly, cherry tomatoes, cut corn. And so when I'm stir frying all 3 categories, you put in the hard first and stir fry for a minute, then the medium hard, and then finally the soft leafy, so that you're reducing time as the vegetable is less dense. And the only vegetable that I would ever blanch would be a hard vegetable.
Carrot. So like broccoli, carrots.
Yeah. And then you always have to really shake out the water, and I would even pat it dry with a kitchen towel or paper towels, because if it's soggy wet, when you add it to the wok with the oil in there, it's going to spatter back on you, and it's going to take down the temperature of the wok and turn your stir fry into a braise.
Yeah, for me, I will do that with the hard vegetables as well. And it's a way to adapt from, because I grew up in a Chinese restaurant. And so we would do the oil blanching, which is a very different technique and hard to replicate at home. So yeah. I'll blanch those hard vegetables in advance.
I also do the water blanching if you're watching your weight, because it means that you've already partially cooked the vegetable, so it needs less oil in the wok. Otherwise, if you're just putting the vegetable into the wok, it's going to take an extra minute or so. And if the pan is getting dry, you have to add more oil. So that's a very healthy tip.
Another question from the audience. Thank you, Matthew. Says, I wonder what the Wok Therapist thinks about the fixation on wok hay. Is it overblown with people thinking they need it in their home cooking?
So my father was obsessed. My father made us sit at the kitchen door closest. When we ate in a restaurant, it was always closest to the kitchen because he wanted the least amount of time to elapse from the food coming out of the wok onto the platter and to our table. He didn't want the waiter to walk through a restaurant and for the dish to cool down. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is. It tastes so incredible. It is. I always say to people, it's like food coming off the grill. The moment it comes off the grill, there's an aroma, there's a smokiness, there's an intensity of flavor that is off the charts. And 2 minutes later, 5 minutes later, the steak, the chicken, whatever it is, still tastes great, but it's lost something. And that's what wok hay is. and you can achieve it in your home kitchen. And I think that people always associate heat with wok hei, but it's not just the heat, it's the quality of your ingredients. If you start out with supermarket chicken that's 2 days old and some broccoli that has been sitting in your refrigerator for like a week or 10 days, there will be no wok hei, no matter how hot and how perfect your wok is. But if you use chicken that's fresh, you went to the farmer's market, bought just harvested broccoli, you barely need to season this food because the food intrinsically has flavor. And what stir frying does and what the magical wok does is that high heat and quick cooking just punches up the flavors. And that's the magic behind wok hei.
But we don't want people to think that if they can't achieve that easily, that they shouldn't cook it at all, right? I mean,
right.
That's the danger. So a couple other questions from the audience, and then we're going to move on to the last segment. Brittany asks, what's the best oil for stir frying?
Always has to be a high heat, high smoking point oil, such as peanut oil is the traditional, but I like rapeseed. You could use rice bran, avocado, even safflower would be fabulous.
So a neutral tasting oil, high smoke point. And then somebody wants to know whether you want to have a cooking show.
I've done a whole series for Weight Watchers called Stir Fry Guru, and who knows what's in the future.
more videos. We'll catch you on YouTube, right?
I have to get Harrison to do that for me. Yeah.
Right. So we're gonna move on to this last bit. You have been working on a different video series, Chinatown Stories. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What kicked that off?
So, as you know, Chinatown has been suffering since January. It's been, they've really been hurting because the public immediately was scared to go to Chinatown or to Chinese restaurants all across the country to eat. And local Chinese seemed to know to immediately shelter in place. And in February, Food and Wine magazine asked me to write a piece to encourage New Yorkers to support Chinatown. And that piece was extremely well received. People didn't realize how bad things were in Chinatown. And by March, there's a wonderful museum in New York City called Poster House. It's 1 year old. And they had just started an exhibition, a Chinese exhibition called Sleeping Giant. And they had approached me to do some auxiliary programming for them, food lectures. But by March 10th, all museums in New York City were closed. So they approached me and said, we want to help the Chinese community. What can we do? Do you have any ideas? And I had this idea in my head that I wanted to go to Chinatown and videotape restaurant owners and shop owners talking about what they were going through, what they were feeling, what their fears or expectations were of life moving forward. And Poster House was incredible. They said, you get this film, we'll put it on our website. So that was how Coronavirus Chinatown Stories was born. I put a post on Instagram asking for a videographer who would be willing to volunteer his time. And I met this incredible guy, Dan On, AHN. And we went down to Chinatown on December 15th, 2 days later after speaking with Poster House, on Sunday the 15th. And we interviewed 5 different restaurant owners and 4 different restaurant owners and 1 shopkeeper. And it was really recording living history. It was, I think, one of the saddest days in Chinatown. And we didn't know it at the time, but we went to WoHop, which has existed since 1938. And the manager there said to us, I don't know how he knew it, but he said, tomorrow, 70% of the restaurants here in Chinatown are closing. We went into Hop Key, which has been in New York City for over 50 years. It's an institution. And the owner, Peter Lee, said to us with tears welling up in his eyes, "I'm closing today and I don't know what's happening. I don't know if we'll ever open again."
That's
So
so gut-wrenching. Yeah.
it's been horrible, and now many of the restaurants have reopened, and everyone is still hurting. It's great in New York City. We have outdoor dining, which is fantastic, and the weather is still warm enough. But I can't encourage people enough to go down to Chinatown and support. And if you have no Chinatown, if you just have a Chinese restaurant or an Asian market in your little town, go there and support them, because they have been hurting since January. And I read a statistic that 233,000 Asian American businesses have closed between February and April. So these mom and pop businesses are operating on razor thin margins. And so it's based on volume. The reason
Volume.
why you can buy a bowl of fried rice for $5.95 or $6.95 or a bowl of wonton noodle soup is because they're hoping to sell 300 bowls that day. If you're selling 10, they're not going to pay the rent, the electricity, the labor, the insurance, everything that comes with running a business. And so we've already lost a lot of businesses. One of the restaurants that we interviewed was Mei Chow's Oze Peace, which was a Malaysian French restaurant. And she closed down after. So the day that we went down on March 15th, a few hours later, Mayor de Blasio shut all restaurants in New York City. And 2 months later, May reopened her restaurant, and she lasted for 1 month. And I have never seen anyone work harder. And that was only for takeout. But she said she only had 20% of the business she had pre-COVID. And the video that we're about to release, probably in the next week or so, is this last chapter of what May went through. So we filmed her on March 15th. We went back and filmed her 5 days later, because when we saw her on March 15th, she's like, "I'm staying open. We have all housewives in my kitchen. All the cooks are housewives." So they were really strong and feisty, and she wasn't reducing hours or anything. But after de Blasio shut everybody down, she didn't even stay open for takeout. And she stayed closed for 2 months. And then when she came back, she had write-ups in the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post. And still, it wasn't enough. So Please, everyone, support your local Chinese restaurants, markets, shops. I say to people when I go down to Chinatown right now that I ask my neighbors and friends, "Can I buy takeout for you?" Just anything to bump up the sales a little bit. And I'll even order like an extra dish that I'll eat for lunch the following day. And I'm a cookbook author who wants people to cook for my cookbook. And I'm telling people, go and support Chinatown, because San Francisco and New York's Chinatowns are historic, and we are going to lose them. And when we lose them, you're going to go into Chinatown, and instead of seeing your favorite restaurants and shops, you're going to see CVS, Panda Express, McDonald's. It's happening. We're losing so many wonderful, important restaurants and stores that make the community. So I plead with all of you in any way, not just once a month, several times a week. Please don't cook from my books. Go to Chinatown and eat there.
We can't leave people with such a downer message. I mean, so what's the hope? Can we end on something hopeful here?
Well, the hope is that right now, and we have to support all restaurants throughout the country, not just Chinese. But we do, if we have, some extra money, tip a little bit more generously. And the Chinese are a resilient people. So I'm hopeful that if anyone can tough it out, it's the Chinese community, but they need our support. They can't tough it out on their own.
Well, Grace, thank you so much for sharing all of your great stories and videos and your beautiful walks. Well, thank you to everybody who has joined us today. We have come to the end of our show. Thank you to Grace and Harrison. And our next event is going to be on September 9th. The details are forthcoming, so stay tuned to social media and jamesbeard.org for more information. This has been the James Beard Media Awards at Home, presented by Capital One, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Grace.